Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Genos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Nate Groot-Nibbelink. I'm the creator of Apples and Genos, originator of the Zero G draft strategy, and contributor to Yahoo Fantasy. In this podcast, I'm going to break down some puzzling players submitted by the lovely members of the Apples and Genos Discord server. Let's get it. Hey there, friends. We are live on YouTube right now. Happy to see some people in here already. Michael's asking, can he sign up for the best friend tier 2? If you missed the last episode of the podcast, Blake was waxing poetic about his love for the best friend tier, which is an alleged tier of the Apples and Genos Patreon that exists or perhaps does not exist. But Michael's interested. I always have room for more best friends, so I'll leave it at that. But basically today, I'm just going to go through, I have a massive list, as you can see if you're watching on YouTube. I have a massive list submitted by the good people of the Apples and Genos Discord server that they want me to go through. They want me to break down some of these players, some early developments for these players, some early deployment situations that have them questioning their priors on these players, maybe mine too. So we will get into all of that. We might do some scoreboard watching. Obviously, there's games going on as I'm recording this. Chicago and Toronto and Florida, New Jersey have just started the second period, as well as the Red Wings and Blue Jackets. Shout out to the NHL for starting all 5 games tonight at the exact same time. So let's get into some news and notes here real quick. Kirby Dach is out long term. That's unfortunate. Sounds like it's torn ACL and MCL, I believe, if I read that correctly. So that's a very long term injury. It looked like he might have a chance to be something this year, had some nice returns in a couple of games. Obviously, too early to tell for sure which way his season was headed, but unfortunately, we won't get to find out. Matt Boldy is week to week. Blake and I mentioned this yesterday. We got some more info today, week to week, but doesn't sound like it's anything too serious, which is good, but I guess also not great. Definitely a lot of my teams are going to be missing Matt Boldy for the next couple weeks here, so we'll get through it together. But basically, I just want to dive into these players, and throughout, I will obviously be taking any questions. I can pause what I'm doing and take some live questions as they come in, so feel free to submit those. We got Toronto Dave in here. What's up, Toronto Dave? Good to see you, buddy. We'll start off with Valerie Nichushkin. Nichushkin has the 1 assist in the 2 games so far. He's averaging just under 17 minutes a night. I think the biggest thing that people are worried about right now is Valerie Nichushkin has no attachment to McKinnon or Rantanen at even strength or on the power play. He's on the second power play unit, which is decidedly worse than Thomas Tatar, Jonathan Drouin, Ross Colton are his running mates on the second power play unit. Definitely worse than McKinnon, Rantanen, Cale Makar, and that kind of exposure that you get on top unit there. So people are rightfully a little bit worried about Nichushkin, but you can see even with that deployment, he's still up there in terms of the on-ice stats. Corsi 4 per 60, up at 14th, 19th, and scoring chances 4 per 60. Still some decent numbers there for Nichushkin. I'm not too worried. I do think that Nichushkin probably gets up there at some point. Ryan Johansson has done absolutely nothing as the second line center and the other piece of this top power play. They've run the Nichushkin, Lehkonen, Rantanen, McKinnon, Makar power play a whole bunch, and it's always been effective when they've done it. I think it's their best power play unit, so I wouldn't be surprised if they go back to it at some point. Definitely, while he's off that unit, you have to you have to expect that he's not going to score that way. But I definitely think there's still some value here for Nichushkin. Just going to quickly take a gander at their schedule here. Colorado this week is playing all the heavy nights Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And then into next week, it is Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. So they have a bunch of heavy nights in the next 2 weeks here. Um, yeah, it depends on your league, I guess. If you're in a 10-team league, I could see that there might be somebody out there who's pretty intriguing, who's had a hot start that you might be interested in. I could see that for sure. But for myself personally, just in terms of the overall situation, I'm not all that worried about Nichushkin. I think he can produce just fine in this current role, but that he's pretty likely overall to get back up to the other role. We've got Simon in here saying he'd like to submit Pavel Zaka. Zaka is on the list. He's a little bit further down, so we'll see how far we get. I do have a hard out around 8:45 for this stream here, and my voice might not let me get that far. I've been fighting a cold for, I guess the better part of a week now, so we'll see how long I can keep going before my voice gives out here. Vendetta says, I'm starting to regret trading Morrissey for Meyer, with Meyer on the third line here. I mean, depends, I guess, a little bit on your setup, but I think I'd probably take Meyer there still. I'm not super worried about Timo Meyer, to be honest. He's on this list too. We talked about him yesterday. I'm worried that we might need to adjust expectations, but I'm not worried that he's gonna be 268th in the league in shots per 60 for the rest of the season. That's not in the cards in my mind for Timo Meyer. He's shown consistently over the last couple of years that he is an elite level shot producer and scoring chance producer. Michael is saying he wants to get in on the best friends tier. We got FF Tyler Owen here. What about Tim Chevelday? Oh wow, taking me back there, buddy. That's a few years ago. I think you're showing your age a little bit. Let's keep rolling with Owen Tippett. So we did talk about this one on podcast yesterday. If you haven't had a chance to check that out, you definitely should. You can see here Owen Tippett's fifth in individual Corsi 4 per 60, but obviously not getting great deployment down the lineup. Cam Atkinson and Sean Couturier coming back has really kind of chased him down the lineup, it seems like, and away from the top power play. A lot of the value that he brought to us at the end of last year was due to all the ice time he was getting. There's a lot of games towards the end of last year he's getting 20 plus minutes, so that doesn't seem to be in the cards. Once again, we'll see what they do moving forward. They haven't had a ton of success, so they might continue to roll things around. Tyson Forster on the top unit, you could see Tippett slipping in there and rotating that out. So we'll see exactly how it shakes out. I'm giving Tippett a little bit of time, especially on my Bangers Cats teams, which is what I said yesterday as well. He hits, he shoots, he does those things, and even when the puck's not going in the net, he'll provide some value in those realms. But I am worried that, just with the current makeup of the team, that his role is diminished. And anytime your role gets diminished, you're taking a bit of a haircut on the overall point totals and everything that we can expect from Tippett. So I definitely think I'm a little bit worried. I was overall lower than a lot of people, I feel like, on my Owen Tippett projection. I believe I ended up with him at 52 points, if I remember correctly. So I think that I ended up being kind of low on Tippett overall. I did get him in a Bangers Cats setup where I thought I needed the hits and I needed the right wing, so I did end up with him there. But overall, I've just, never been super high on Tippett outside of a distinct format like that. Yeah, I had him for 27 goals, 52 points across 82 games. That was with 15 power play points. So if he's never going to get power play one this season, you could see that tick down, and then you're really kind of worried about what he's bringing. But I think he probably gets some of that power play back at some point. It's just a matter of whether you can hold him until then. If you're in like a points only setup, then I think you're dropping Tippett right away. If you're in a point setup with some sort of decent weighting for shots and hits, then he's right on the line there, especially in standard kind of 12-team format and 10-team format. Anything below that, you're probably getting rid of him right now. Seth Jarvis, we got pretty excited about Seth Jarvis in that first game. Came out hitting, shooting, doing all those things we love. Got an assist, had a whole bunch of minutes. Still keeping up the minutes, over 19 and a half minutes average time on ice through the first 3 games, but hasn't got any points since then. So a little bit of the glass half full, glass half empty there with Seth Jarvis. I'm pretty excited still about the player. I think he's gonna take a step. It's nice to see that he's being valued this way. It seems like basically Jarvis was a member of the top power play unit. Even when they switched things around, they took Brent Burns off the top unit and brought in Martin Necas. They didn't take Seth Jarvis off. So it seems like, at least for now, until Svechnikov comes back, that Jarvis is a fairly entrenched member of that top power play. Of course, if things don't work, then, it could always change. He's not. Doesn't have a ton of tenure. He's not the Sebastian Aho or Andrei Svechnikov of this team, where you feel pretty confident they'll be there all season long. So keep your eye on that. But overall, any player who's skating these kind of minutes for a team as good as Carolina, I'm going to be fairly interested in, especially a guy like Jarvis, who has actually shown some really nice things under the hood for the last year or so. I'm not too concerned about these early returns on the shots per 60 just being, average to below average across the league. I think that'll rebound, and he should be just fine in those categories moving forward. So I'm not going to worry too much about that at this point. I'm holding on to Seth Jarvis in the places where I picked him up, and then we'll see how he does this week. And then, if things are still going cold, I'll probably reassess after this week. Simon says, any early goalie phase for the 0G folk? Thoughts on waiver wire goalies? Mrazek, Talbot, Copley, Blackwood, Montembeault. Yeah, obviously Mrazek and Blackwood have started out really well. Montembeault had a good end to the year last year and had a decent start. It was against Chicago, so take that for what it's worth. The Talbot Copley LA Kings tandem is a little bit up in the air right now after neither of them really laid hold to the job in their first 2 showings. So I still think that one's up for debate as to who might basically whoever gets the best start out of the next couple starts is probably going to get the next game, and they'll kind of just take it from there. So whoever's hot is going to play. That's kind of how we like it for fantasy, but I do think this is probably a tandem all season long until they almost inevitably go out and get whoever this year's Eunice Corpusalo is at the trade deadline. So that's my thoughts on the LA tandem. Of the other goalies you mentioned, I'm not too high on any of them, obviously. I have some interest, I would say, in Sam Montembeault, just because we have a little bit of the proof of concept from last year where he had a good run. And Montreal, like, if I'm choosing between Montreal, Chicago, and San Jose as the teams in front of them, I'm not obviously enjoying any of those options, but I think I would still have Montreal slightly ahead of the other two. So I'll take Montembeault out of that group at the moment. Blackwood did have a really nice outing against Colorado. I'm open to the fact that Blackwood could have just needed a change of scenery, and now he's going to be solid. He had some flashes before, and it could have some flashes again. I'm not totally against that, but that is a really tough environment. The Sharks are not icing an NHL caliber lineup right now, or probably at any point throughout this season. So I'm a little bit worried about that, obviously. Michael asks, any word on Svechnikov? I have not seen anything. I can check on the old Twitter machine while we're live here, but I have not seen anything new on Svechnikov as to when he might be returning. But yeah, obviously we all hope that he's going to be coming back. The latest I'm seeing, that's from October 10th. That's a little while ago still. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything yet from Svechnikov. Nothing on the old Twitter machine that's really popping for me. So unfortunately, no update on Svechnikov at this point. Blake says the best friend tier, absolutely worth the money. A bargain, actually. Absolutely. That's my best friend right there. Blake Creamer. Luca asks, who would you drop between Fantilli and Hurdle in a Bangers Cats League? Leaning Fantilli. Fantilli and Hurdle. Hurdle is obviously the safe option here. And Fantilli, the exciting option, I guess you would say. Hurdle's going to get all those minutes, and Fantilli is not going to get the minutes necessarily, but could play his way into a greater role. For some reason, it's not updating Fantilli stats for me. I think that I would probably drop Fantilli at the moment unless we see that Fantilli's going to be consistently on the top power play unit. That would be the one thing that might change my mind. We're not seeing that currently, so that's leaning me away from Fantilli and towards Hurdle at the moment. I just think Hurdle is a consistent enough player, averaging almost 21 minutes a game through the first two games. As I mentioned, the Sharks not really icing a great lineup right now, so Hurdle is absolutely going to get a ton of run there. Chris Hollywood asking, is Zegras' slow start related to his contract issues before the season? I think you can't underestimate how hard it is to, just come right in off the couch and start playing NHL games. I think there's something to that. If memory serves, Brady Tkachuk had a little bit of that when he had his contract holdout that ended just before the season started. So, I'm not concerned about Zegras yet. I think that to be honest, the thing that's more concerning for me about both Troy Terry and Trevor Zegras, who are both on this list here, is the minutes that they're getting in the early going. Trevor Zegras just above 17. Troy Terry at about 16 minutes, 14 seconds average time on ice through the first two games. That's way more concerning to me than anything about their individual play so far. So that's what I'd be the most worried about, is that under new coaching that they might just spread this thing all the way out at even strength, and you might not actually get those big time minute totals from Terry and Zegras that you were seeing before. So, we'll see if it's just a matter of, early in the season, new coach, he wants to spread things out, keep everybody loose, get everybody involved, and then he'll start to lean on his big guns a little more in more key situations. Like you have the game last night where the Ducks just run away with it in the third period. And so you could say that maybe they didn't need to run out their big guns as much. And maybe in a game where they're down by one goal late, that the Terry and Zegras guys get out there a bit more. There's all those things that could play into it here, but definitely something that I'm keeping an eye on in the early going here. All right, let's talk about Nikolai Ehlers and what is this, like 14 minutes 20 seconds average time on ice that he's seen through the first couple games. Still 17th in the league in individual Corsi 4 per 60. The Jets as a whole actually look pretty impressive at even strength in terms of generating chances, so that's nice to see. For Ehlers himself, it's tough. He had the neck spasms issue, plays in the first game, goes into the boards in the first game, bangs himself up a little bit. You wonder if he's still nursing something a little bit and he's consciously being played down the lineup. But again, it's hard to tell what's going on here between Ehlers and Bonus, if Bonus just really doesn't like him or if Ehlers has just been banged up, and that's what's at play here. Honestly, like for where Ehlers is at, like Ehlers is below 50% rostered on Yahoo right now. He's at 40% rostered on Yahoo right now. And if there's somebody dropping him in your league, if there's somebody totally panicking on him in your league, then I am interested in picking Ehlers up. This week, Winnipeg is playing on all the heavy nights. So the schedule this week is not that great. And then next week, again, all heavy nights, 3 games only. So again, not that great next week. But if you got a spot and you're looking for someone who could be a long-term hold, like I've said it a million times on this podcast, but Ehlers definitely does have 90-point potential inside of him in his talent that you see in his underlying numbers. And it's really just a matter of him staying healthy and getting the deployment necessary to unleash that. Both of those are question marks right now. Don't know exactly how banged up he is. Don't know exactly what the extent of the bonus hate for Ehlers is. So these are the two things that you're kind of weighing. I can definitely understand people wanting to move on. There's a lot of exciting options out there. Like, would I move off of Ehlers for an Evan Rodriguez, somebody like that? all valid questions at this point. Don't know that I have a great answer for you there. If you've got Austin Matthews and Brock Besser and a bunch of other guys that are just lighting the world on fire, maybe you can hang on to Ehlers and you can afford to wait and see a little bit and see how long it takes. Or yeah, maybe he'll start right away this week and he'll be back to normal. Who knows? If you can afford to wait on the Ehlers decision, I definitely would. If you're in a deeper league and people are panicking on Ehlers, like a 14-team league or a league that starts more forwards, I definitely send some feelers out for Ehlers because I just feel like this is one of those situations where we know what the player can be, and I'm just willing to take the bet that the other situational factors play themselves out, and Ehlers gets to unleash his potential at some point in the season, and at that point, the highs are worth the lows in a lot of cases, just because at this point, I don't think you're going to have to pay a lot to acquire him. So that's kind of where I'm at with Ehlers. David asks, in a points-only league, would you drop any of Nichushkin, Terry, or Trocheck for Bennett? That is an excellent question. It's pretty tough, to be honest with you. I see the potential for all three of those players, and I see the potential for Bennett. I think that I don't think I would at this point right now. It is a very tough question. They're all right there in my mind. Really, I'm not creating tiers between all these players in my mind. They're all very close in a points only setup. So that is a pretty interesting question, and I think you're on the right track to be asking that question. Would I drop Nichushkin? No, I don't think I would. I think Nichushkin's baseline, even without Power Play 1, is around 60 points, which is what I kind of expect for Bennett. Bennett still has the plus minus of will he be on the top power play or won't he? If he is on the top power play, then you might be pleasantly surprised with some additional production. But Nichushkin also has that plus minus. If he gets up to the top power play, then you've seen he can be a 70 plus point player. So, yeah, that's an interesting question for sure. Troy Terry, I talked about, it's really just a matter of, is this deployment for real? Is this what we're going to see all season long, 16 to 17 minutes on average every single night? If that is, that's a big problem for Terry. He definitely needs more minutes than that to produce at the levels we're expecting. But I'm inclined to wait it out and see because I think Terry has point per game potential if everything goes right this year. And then Trocheck, it's really obviously, again, about the power play 1 there. Trocheck and Bennett, very similar players in a lot of respects. So that's a pretty interesting question. I don't think that I would drop any of them at the moment, but Terry in particular with this deployment, I've got a pretty close eye on. I'll say that. Vendetta asks, is Wilson on the list off of PP1? I'm assuming you're talking about Tom Wilson. Tom Wilson was not on the list. But just in general, I think that Tom Wilson kind of is what he is, right? Like, I don't think we're super excited about Tom Wilson, except in like a true bangers cats where PIMs are counted too. Then he's going to hit, he's going to shoot a little bit enough to be relevant, he's going to score enough to be relevant, but he's really going to give you the hits and PIMs that you're looking for in bangers cats. Outside of those formats, I've never been too excited about what Tom Wilson brings to the table. Keep talking here. Brock Faber is somebody we got to talk about. 2 points in 2 games, averaging almost 23 minutes a night. Really nice stuff from Brock Faber. Got to watch a good chunk of the Wild and Toronto game on Saturday night there, and he looked the part for whatever the eye test is worth. Looked the part there. The underlying metrics, not so great in terms of shot generation or any of that, but it seems like he's going to get a ton of minutes. Is there even a chance that he unseats Kalen Addison from the top power play? I don't know how realistic that is, but if there is a chance, then I'd be even more interested in Brock Faber. At this point, I don't know that I'm really like, I'd set the over-under somewhere in the high 30s on his point total for the or point pace, I guess I should say, for the rest of the season. So take that for what it's worth. If that's valuable to you in your league, then you could be interested in Brock Faber. But really, I think you're just kind of waiting to see if he can actually get some power play minutes that are worthwhile. And that's when you'd really be interested in Brock Faber. But definitely soaking up some big minutes in Minnesota and getting some exposure to, the Kaprizovs of the world there. Drake Batherson, another one we touched on in the podcast yesterday. 0 points, obviously, through 3 games here, 16.5 minutes average time on ice. I said it yesterday, I'll say it again. We really need Josh Norris to come back and be healthy and to get with Drake Batherson on a line here because the guys he's playing with are not cutting it right now. The power play alone cannot save him. I'm not concerned about Batherson, the player. I am very concerned about the players that he's having to play with. And Ottawa won their game, right? They won 5-2 against Tampa. They have to feel pretty good about how things are going at the current moment. So I don't know why they'd change, which is all the more concerning for Batherson. I think this is a good player. It's really just a matter of he needs to have somebody that he can count on at even strength to really achieve the ceiling that I thought was possible for him at the start of the season. Michael's asking, are the Flames better than the Oilers? Those are fighting words. Well, Calgary was up 2-0, and now it's 2-2. I'm just seeing on scoreboard here, so I don't know what to make of that exactly, but yeah, I think we better cool those jets just a little bit right now. Keep rolling. We did talk about Timo Meier a little bit, so I think we can leave that one. And we talked about him on the podcast yesterday. It's really just right now I'm managing my expectations for Timo Meier. I think that he is pretty much the player that we thought he was. It's really just a matter of are they really going to roll this split power play unit? Are they really going to keep his minutes down in this range around 17, where I was hoping he'd be up at the 18, 19-minute range? If they're going to keep him in this range, then definitely that's going to hurt his fantasy production. Philip Grubauer, right here. Obviously, it doesn't pop any stats up here, but I can talk about goalies. I'm not averse to talking about goalies. I'm pretty interested in Grubauer. I wrote about him for Yahoo this week. For what it's worth, had a couple of decent starts so far. 918 save percentage across his 2 games played. So I've got some love for Grubauer. I think Seattle will rebound offensively. That just needs some time to work out the kinks. I don't think they'll be quite as efficient as they were last year, but I think this is a solid team overall, and they should provide him with a solid front. And Grubauer makes a perfectly good zero-G option guy. Got in a couple of spots as a zero-G option for myself this year and feeling pretty good about that so far. With all my zero-G goalies, though, I'm watching them like a hawk. If anything starts to go south, then I'm already thinking about the next guy. So I'm not getting comfortable with Grubauer or, thinking that he's definitely going to be somebody I hang on to all season at this point. That's for sure. Richard asks, what do you think about the Band-Aid boy label? Yeah, so I talked about this in a recent podcast about how everybody thinks they can project injuries and predict them. And this guy got injured last season and the season before, so he's definitely going to get injured again this season, even though those prior injuries had nothing to do with each other. And one was a freak headshot by a goon, and the other one was an incident where he tripped and fell and tweaked his knee or something. There's so many of these instances, and people are like, Band-Aid boy. I don't agree with the label. I will never incorporate that into my thinking for fantasy hockey. I think that's a losing mindset, is to subtract. I think you're just double counting because you're already getting the discount from the rest of the league in the draft or in a trade or in the pickup off the waiver wire. The fact that they're there, you're already getting a discount on them because the rest of the league is probably baking in that injury prone label to some extent. And so I think that you've already got that discount baked in at whatever your acquisition cost is. And then if they stay healthy the whole season, then you're playing with house money. If they don't stay healthy the whole season, then they are what you got them for, what they basically perform at the cost that you got them for. So I just think that to do that is really to double count against yourself in a lot of situations. And I advise all the people who listen to Apples and Geno's content that if you're counting for injuries, you're doing yourself a disservice. We see it year after year after year that tons of these players who we absolutely know they can't possibly stay healthy for a full season. The next year they come out and they play a full season. Erik Karlsson last year, Evgeny Malkin last year. No way those guys stay healthy for a full season. And they come out and do it at their advanced ages, and everybody's gobsmacked. And it happens every single year. So that's my thoughts about that. Rickard Rakell, 3 games played so far, just the 1 assist, just above 15 and a half minutes average time on ice. And the metrics aren't great on the individual side, 67th in individual Corsi for per 60, but much further down in the shots per 60 and individual scoring chances for per 60. The on ice stats look a lot better because of the team around him, right? Corsi for is 27th and scoring chances for per 60, 21st. So obviously he's getting a boost there, playing on the top power play with Pittsburgh. He's definitely going to get a boost from that situation. Playing with Malkin, who's playing out of his mind at even strength right now. He's getting a boost from that situation, but he hasn't been able to convert, and he's not playing particularly well himself. Still think that, he was a reasonable draft day acquisition. His cost wasn't extravagant. I'm not like worried about Raquel and that he's never gonna produce, but he's not like an elite level player, and so he's gonna have stretches where he does this, where he gets you 1 assist in 4 games, 5 games, and you're like, I don't know what to do with Raquel, and then he's gonna go on a little bit of a heater, score a couple goals, get an assist the next game, score a couple goals again. You're like, Raquel's the best, and then the cycle will repeat itself, and at the end of the season, you end up with a 60-point player. That's just about how this always goes. So that's kind of how I feel about it. Nice that he's hung on to the top power play there. That really does boost him up a little bit. That's not something I baked into my projections. So, yeah, him being able to hang on to that so far is definitely worthwhile. And if he can hang on to that for much longer, then he should have a pretty nice ceiling. So, Raquel is not somebody I'm super worried about at this point. We talked about Trevor Zegras. We talked about Brock Besser in the pod yesterday, so I won't go into too much detail here. It's really just about is this the role for Brock Besser throughout the season? Line one, power play one. Obviously, love to see the hot start here. 24th in shots per 60, 44th in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 43rd in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. All those are good numbers there. 17 and a half minutes average time on ice. I'd like to see that a little bit higher for like, extreme fantasy potential, but I still think that Brock Besser is pacing, like for a 65-point season, 30, 35 goals, 30, 35 assists, well within the range here for Brock Besser in the current role that seems to be there for him. So, Brock Besser looking like a nice draft day pickup if you did do that. Teuvo Teravainen has 4 goals in 3 games here. Really nice start to the season for him. But unfortunately, I really don't think this is going to last too long. I think that, he's going to get bumped down when Svechnikov comes back. Right now, playing on the Aho line in the last game for a bit with Niches. They kind of moved things around because of how badly that game was going. We'll see what they run out there for the next game. But 16 minutes plus change average time on ice here. The advanced metrics all look pretty terrible for Teravainen. So I'm really not excited. He's still not on power play one, so you're not getting that benefit. He's just run really hot. He's got an 80% shooting percentage through 3 games here. So he's taken 5 shots and scored on 4 of them. So good on him, but I definitely don't think this is going to continue. There's probably worse things you could do with an ad in a pretty deep league, but definitely it's not something I expect to continue. I think we've seen the best days of Teuvo Teravainen, unfortunately, and those days are probably behind him. He's got a nice little start to the season, but I expect that this will be the best stretch of the season for him. Got a few more comments here. Vendetta says Corey Perry just scored a breakaway goal on Toronto and then taunted the crowd. Yeah, I mean, Corey Perry's going to Corey Perry. You got to expect that every time he's out there. Kyle says Leafs doing their thing of playing worse against worse teams. It's the Leafs way. That's all I can say. And Michael says, does Matthews get 3 hat tricks in 3 games? Is Matthews the goal scorer here? No, it's Tavares. So I really don't think that that's going to happen, obviously, but that would be pretty cool. I think we'd all love to see that here in Leafland. Let's keep rolling. I'm getting close to my hard out here, but I do want to touch on Mason McTavish, who's had a nice little start here. 3 points in 2 games, averaging over 18 minutes, which is obviously better than both Troy Terry and Trevor Zegras so far, who I mentioned before. So that's looking good for Mason McTavish on that Strome-Vetrano line. Vetrano obviously had the hat trick the other night. Really nice game for him. McTavish is on the top power play, so he's getting those minutes as well. And yeah, at least in that game against Carolina, the coach really leaned into playing the McTavish line. So maybe he likes what he's seeing out of McTavish, and we'll get some big time minutes out of McTavish this year. If we do, then yeah, there's definitely a case that you can build for McTavish being more than just a streaming level player. Um, Young player, still don't really know what his ceiling in the league could be. Early stats are not terrific here. 151st in shots per 60, 119th in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. On ice numbers, 107th in Corsi, 4 per 60, and 31st in scoring chances, 4 per 60. That last number is at least pretty good, but obviously very, very small sample size so far. Vendetta asks, "You're a Leaf lover?" Yeah, unfortunately. I know so many people say it ain't so, and sometimes I say that to myself. Kyle says 3-1 Chicago. Thanks for the update, man. You're really helping me feel good about my evening. Cam York, we got to talk about. Well, this might be the last one here, but Cam York has a goal already on the young season, skating close to 22 minutes a night, 14th in shots per 60 amongst all defensemen, 27th in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 28th in Corsi, 4 per 60, 10th in scoring chances, 4 per 60. Some nice metrics in a very small sample size here for Cam York to start the season. I've got some love for this player. Obviously, had some pedigree coming out, and definitely seems like they're willing to give him the top power play and give him some top pair minutes here as well. And Philadelphia doesn't look terrible. Like, I don't think they're going to be quite as bad as they were last year. So I think that that's pretty interesting in terms of what he can potentially provide. Very, very available on Yahoo right now. He's at 5% rostered. So yeah, you can definitely pick him up in a lot of leagues currently. So I'm pretty interested in Cam York. I've had an eye on picking him up in a lot of places so far. That's going to be it from there. Unfortunately, not going to get to the end here, but Lucas asking, is Zaka or Mangiapane droppable for someone like Erod? Just because of the schedule, I would not drop Mangiapane this week. The schedule for Calgary this week is legitimately the best schedule of the week. You can see on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. So I definitely wouldn't drop Mangiapane. I think Zaka is droppable. No games for the first 3 nights of this week. Erod, obviously hot right now, and I think he's got at least a point tonight. I haven't checked since I came on. Yeah, he's got another assist tonight. Definitely loving life on the top line, top power play over there in Florida. So I think I could be convinced to drop Zaka for Erod. Zaka has not impressed me so far. I think he's just a little bit of a limited player. Like, the underlying metrics don't look that great. He's playing with Pasternak for whatever that's worth, but even the minutes here are not terrific. So I think Zaka will be fine over the course of the season, but Erod could be hot for a stretch here, and I think that the hot stretch from Erod is probably worth more than Zaka's like 55 points over the course of the season, just spread out over the course of the season. So I'd rather kind of chase the hot streak there if those are the end of your roster players right now. All right, folks, that is going to be a wrap on this one. Thanks so much for joining me. This was a lot of fun. We're going to be doing this every single Monday at 8 p.m. EST. So get your biscuits in here every single week. Put it in your calendar, make a note in your phone, set yourself an alarm, whatever you got to do. I'm going to be here for you guys every single week. You can come hang out, ask a bunch of questions, roast me if the Leafs are losing while I'm on stream. Do whatever makes you feel good. While you're here, though, I do want to just make sure, if you want to get the players you are finding the most puzzling on your teams in for next week's episode, next week's live stream, then you got to get into the Apples and Genos Discord server. That's where I got all the recommendations that you saw on the screen here tonight. So definitely get yourself into the Apples and Genos Discord server, and then I send out a ping on the Monday asking for suggestions on who to talk about in this Puzzling Players segment. So if you get in there and you wait for that ping on the Monday, you can get your player in there, and hopefully we get to talk about that player on the live stream here. While I've got you as well, I do want to make sure that everyone is aware of the daily summaries at 18 Skaters. Mark Barber is posting on the Apples and Ginos website. If you're watching on YouTube, it's across the top of the screen here, applesandginos.com. Definitely get over there. You can get a quick summary on the goings on in the league the night before. All of the stats that matter the most for fantasy are in that summary. So definitely check that out every single day. If you want to get more specific advice for your fantasy team, you want to get guaranteed answers to all your questions, then you should check out the Apples and Ginos Patreon, where for just $5 a month, you can ask any question you want, and I'll answer you as quickly as I can. That's going to be it. If you are on YouTube, if you could throw a like on this, hit subscribe, all that really helps us out. If you're listening on the podcast, a quick rating and review would be awesome. Appreciate you all so much. That's all I've got for this episode. Hopefully it brought you some value, helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard and saw today came from Natural Stat Trick. Many thanks to the band They're There for supplying the music for the podcast. Check out their Spotify as well. That's it, folks. Much love.